Welcome back to another Giraffe Gaming with your friendly neighborhood giraffe, John. On today's episode, I thought I'd take a different approach and do a game that I've been playing since it came out in the States, which has been, gosh, I'm going to date myself, but probably almost 2 decades. And the second it came onto mobile, I've just been obsessed with this game, much like Pokemon Pocket, but I thought I'd take a break from that and kind of highlight some of the decks that I like to play in Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links. So one of my favorite decks to play right now is actually the Fluffal deck, and I'm calling this deck Plushie Power. And that's mainly because this deck revolves around super cute stuffed animals that are fused together with monstrosities, which are the edge imps, to create these fusion monsters that all have special abilities. And the whole reason that I really like this archetype was because of one card in particular, and that's the Frightfur Kraken, who's animated above my head. I'm obsessed with cephalopods, so the second I saw this card, I was like, I have to build a deck around this. And I will say that the playstyle of this deck is actually nothing like what I normally play as. This deck is incredibly aggro. Do not let the cute, fluffy nature of these monsters put you off from playing them. This deck goes off and goes hard. And so I thought I would just run through how I've built this deck and why I made some of the decisions that I made. And the duelist that I'm obviously running this deck with is Sora, and this is who ran the deck in the anime as well. And that's primarily because of this ability, Fairy Smile. So there are other duelists that also have this ability, so that's my recommendation, is pick a duelist that has Fairy Smile. And the reason for that is because all of the Fluffal monsters, not the edge imps, but the Fluffals, are all fairies. So every time you draw a fairy with Fairy Smile, you get 1,000 life points, which is just insane. Like, it should really be 500, but I'm not the game developer. So having said that, that's why I run Sora. You can also run any other duelist that happens to have Fairy Smile. That's just my recommendation, but feel free to run whoever you want. But let's get into the deck. So as you can see, we run 2 copies of Edge Imp Chain. So this card is how you're going to pull cards from your deck, because every time he's discarded, whether that's for a fusion summon or your toy vending machine or any other way, and there's a different ways that this deck discards cards, you get a card back. This deck is really good about replenishing your hand. There are some turns I've drawn over like 10 cards. It's insane. So 2 copies of that. We're running, I believe, 2 copies of the Fluffal Dog. And again, Fluffal Dog just, again, pulls more cards out of your deck for you to have more resources. And it pairs really well. So we're running 3 copies, apologies. We're running Edge Imp Scythe. So Edge Imp Scythe is one of those cards that you want to keep in your hand. It's a surprise hand trap that allows you to fusion summon on your opponent's turn, which is incredibly powerful with this deck. And you'll see why when we get to the fusion cards, because they're effects are amazing. So obviously we're going to run 2 copies of that. We run 1 copy of the Edge Imp Sabers, and that's just because there's a few fusion monsters that require this specific Edge Imp card, whereas the other fusions just say an Edge Imp monster, but one actually says Edge Imp Saberus, and you have to run this card. So I only read 1 copy of it. It does have the ability to special summon itself from the graveyard, which is nice for recycling. So really not really necessary to run multiple copies since it has that ability. And I run 1 Fluffal Bear, and this is honestly just to help get the toy vendor out, or in very rare cases get a polymerization. So just 1 copy of that. I only run 1 Fluffal Owl, and again for the same reason, just in case you want that polymerization, you just can't seem to draw it. So 1 of him, and then we're running Fluffal Penguin, and this card, when it's on the field, lets you special summon another Fluffal monster, which you'll usually go into Dog, get another card from the deck, and then you can pop off. And I'll explain one of my techs for that later on. Again, we're running 3 copies of that, running 1 copy of Fluffal Wings, and this literally is just to help with the toy vendor engine, and I'll explain toy vendor when we get there, but just 1 copy of this. We're doing 1 Fluffal Dolphin, and again, that's just also to recycle toy vendor and to also help you with generating some more Fluffal synergies with the graveyard. and we're running Frightfur Patchwork. Now this card is critical because it helps you get polymerization to your hand, but it also gets you an Edge Imp card, which is fantastic. So it's good for deck thinning, and we're running 2 copies of this. We're running 1 Frightfur Fusion, and again, this just lets you fusion summon from the graveyard, but you have to banish, and you also can do it from the hand as well, but all the cards get banished, which you don't really want to banish your cards unless you're desperate, because they recycle themselves so well. And again, that's why there's only 1 copy. It's like your desperado move. And I run 2 copies of Toy Vendor, and Toy Vendor is your draw engine, for lack of a better word. And when it's paired with Fluffal Wings, you're drawing hopefully a card off of Toy Vendor, discarding Fluffal Wings. Fluffal Wings is in the graveyard, activate Fluffal Wings effect, remove a Fluffal from play. You get to draw a card, and then if you remove Toy Vendor from the field, you draw another card. So in 1 turn, you've drawn 3 cards just by having those 2 cards. It's insane. This card draws, the draw engine for this card, for this whole archetype, is kind of broken. Again, we're just running 2 polymerization, and then this is where it gets a little weird. So you could choose to run these cards or not. I usually use them primarily, to be quite frank, as fodder for the Toy Vendor vending machine card. But in a pinch, they're really great because they do allow you to special summon your Frightfur fusion monsters from the graveyard sometimes. So there's Frightfur Reborn, and there's also Repair. And again, it's the same thing. Either it's going back to the extra deck so you can summon it later, or it's actually hitting the field. So they have their moments. I very rarely use them for their intended purpose. It's usually just for fodder to get more draw. And then, so now we're into the fusions. So this is where this deck archetype just excels. And again, I really like fusion monsters. I have since the game started. And so this deck just kind of plays into my love of fusion monsters. So having said that, let's kind of go through them quickly. So I'm only running 1 Frightfur Sabretooth, and again, this is primarily here because of its ability to boost the attack of all of your Frightfur monsters by 400, and it also cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects if you use 3 or more fusion materials, which is super easy in this deck. And it also, when you fusion summon it, if you use a Frightfur monster, which you have to, you can special summon that Frightfur monster back immediately with its effect, which is fantastic and pairs beautifully with Frightfur Kraken, which we'll get into in just a second. So I only won 1 Frightfur Tiger, and again, this is the one that requires the specific Edge Imp card to summon, and that's primarily because it has a broken effect where for every material that you use to fusion summon it, you get to destroy that many cards on your opponent's field, which is insane. So if you did 3, obviously you could destroy 3 cards. You could do your entire hand, the graveyard. If you're doing the Frightfur fusion card when you're banishing cards, you can obliterate your opponent's field with just this 1 card. And then we're running, I believe, 2 copies. Yes, 2 copies of Whale, Cruel Whale. And Cruel Whale is fantastic. Basically, it has 2 effects. One is you can, when he's summoned, choose to destroy 1 card on your field and 1 card on your opponent's field at the same time, which is fantastic because if you have Toy Vendor out, Toy Vendor wants to be destroyed. So you can destroy Toy Vendor, it gets destroyed, it gets a new card for you. You're not really losing any resources, but your opponent is. And then its secondary effect is that you can discard a card, basically, from either your extra deck or your hand that's a Frightfur or Fluffal card, and it gets a boost in attack to any of your monsters. It's amazing. So it just kind of helps you push for game in those later turns, and also for an OTK. And then here is the whole reason why I built this deck, was for the Frightful Kraken. And again, it's super easy to get out, and it's got 3 effects. So the first effect is, once a turn, you can just destroy a monster on the field on your opponent's side. And the downside to that is it can't attack directly. Having said that, this card can actually attack twice. So even if there's 3 monsters on your opponent's side of the field, you can destroy one with the effect and still attack the other 2, and you're still left with whatever monsters you have on the field to go for their life points directly. So it's kind of broken in that respect. So that's its second effect, is it can attack twice. And then the third effect is, at the end of your turn, you can choose to put him into defense mode. So then you've got a 3,000 defense wall to protect you moving forward. And it's fantastic. And I run 3 copies of this guy because I think it's broken. Because if you get 3 of these out, now you can attack 6 times and destroy 3 monster cards with little to no drawback. It's insane. And then I run 1 Frightfur Chimera, and again, I've only used this card I think once out of all the duels I've ever played this card with, and it's mainly just because it takes way too many resources. It's not really worth it, but it is great for the Cruel Will effect, just to get rid of that card out of your extra deck. It's kind of great just to thin it out a little bit, but also it does pair really nicely with Frightfur Reborn when you can get it back and just keep recycling. It's good for that. And then this is my 1 tech. So I am obsessed with this card. I love this card. Its effect is fantastic. Every time you attack, it increases in level, and then it also gains 300 attack. So it can get really beefy really quickly. And the best part is you can get this turn 1. Because if you have a penguin and a dog in your hand, you've got it. And that's why I run it, is because sometimes you just can't get those edge amp cards and you need another boss monster until you can get your polymerizations or your edge amps. You just need another way to put pressure on your opponent. And so that's why I tech in 1 copy of Malevolent Sin. And so that's the deck profile in a nutshell. And like I said, I do run it with the Fairy Smile ability so that I can get those extra life points whenever I draw one of my Fluffal cards. I just think it's nice because sometimes this deck can stall out a little bit, especially if you are really drawing deep into your deck, which this deck can really do. It can burn through cards quickly, so you got to be careful. Resource management is key, timing is key. I would say that this deck has a very high skill level, especially if you're really new to Yu-Gi-Oh! And Duel Links and how everything operates with, you know, the chains and everything like that. I'd say definitely play with it a little bit before you kind of jump in playing with other people, just to kind of feel out the deck. And having said that, what I'd like to do is just kind of play with one of the computers, just kind of talk through some of the combos before actually playing with real people. So we're just gonna go in here and play this. And again, we're gonna switch over here, so I'll have the deck list on the side so you can look at what's in the deck while we're playing. And again, this deck is one of those that it really doesn't matter if you go first or second, truthfully.
Duel!
Okay, so we got our penguin, so we can get that extra special summon, and see, I can literally fusion summon right now, which I'm gonna do. Like, it's not even my turn. I'm gonna go straight into Kraken. Because there's no reason not to. And then Fluffal Penguin gets the effect to where I get to draw 2 cards and discard a card, which also is really great because now I can pop off my edge amp. Like I said, there's a lot of different ways to discard cards in this deck, and I get its effect. So now I get to pull a card from the deck, which I need, and I do need polymerization, so let's go for this. Great, doesn't really matter. They've kind of served their purpose. Beautiful. And again, we get our Fairy Smile, which is the whole reason we run Zara. And so I'm gonna activate my Patchwork so I can get my polymerization to my hand. And then I'm also gonna get Sabers. Because again, we only run the 1 copy, so I like to have it in my hand. So here's where it can get interesting. So I think I wanna go, just to thin my deck out, let's discard the bear to get a Toy Vendor directly from my deck to the field. I'm gonna activate that. And then let's go ahead and we're gonna wait to activate it because with our dolphin, if we fusion summon, you can shuffle a deck one of your fusion spells, which is great. So, you know what? Let's just go ahead and fusion. There's no reason not to. And I'm just gonna end this game now. Again, I'm on turn 2. So we're gonna discard our Edge Imp so that we can get a card from the deck. And we'll do Penguin so we can also get another card from the deck. And again, each Kraken can attack twice. So here we go. So we're getting our card for Edge Imp, which, let's just go ahead and get the Patchwork again. You can only activate one Patchwork a turn, which is the one drawback, which is okay. And so I still have to discard a card, which is fine. So I'm going to discard this extra copy of Toy Vendor because, again, when it's discarded, I get another card. So the draw engine, again, is just insane. I'm going to go ahead and get Wings. And this is when I'll activate Toy Vendor with Wings. I get to special summon. So here comes Penguin. Penguin will let me special summon Dolphin. And then again, you can get back the Toy Vendor if I wanted it, but I don't think that I want it because I can also just activate Wings from the graveyard. This is what is ridiculous. So watch this. So remove that, draw a card, draw another card. Yes, Toy Vendor goes away. Toy Vendor affects triggers. So not only do I get to draw a card, I get to also get another card from my deck. So look at my hand. This is turn 2. Turn 2. This deck is incredible. And like I said, now there's no more room, which is fine. This is why I also run Malevolent Sin, so that I can clear up some space. So there's Malevolent Sin, which is fantastic. And again, I've got my Scythe, so I can even fusion summon again on my opponent's turn. But we're gonna switch him to attack. And again, this deck is just broken because, like I said, I've got 4 attacks now. And then my Malevolent Sin is just going to keep getting stronger. So essentially, I just won turn 1. I know technically I went second, but still, it was my first turn, and I won. That's how fast this deck is. It's insane. So I highly recommend, if you haven't played with the Fluffal archetype because you think it's too cutesy or whatever, it is not cutesy. It is an incredibly aggro deck that has some amazing plays that you can do. And I highly recommend just kind of giving it a shot. And be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I'll do other Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Link deck profiles. I've got a lot of other fun decks I like to play. I built an entire Pegasus deck. I like building Fortune Lady decks, all kinds of fun stuff. I don't really like to do the meta decks, much like in Pokemon Pocket. I like to have fun with my gaming. So if you like that, please come back for the next episode. Look forward to seeing you. And until then, happy gaming.